1938. Matson and the Adahi Itano program. Cars Plus. Drive home in a brand new 2021 Hyundai Palisade equipped with Guam's only lifetime powertrain limited warranty. Call 477-7807 or visit carsplusguam.com. McDonald's of Guam, I'm loving it, and King's Restaurant, serving your local breakfast, lunch, and dinner favorites for over 45 years.
Head on Primetime. A public hearing for a bill that would allow licensed off-island nurses to bypass the local certification process draws mixed reactions. Plus, the man charged with the murder of Andrew Ray Castro pleads not guilty by reason of mental illness defect. And a bill is introduced that will reduce the business privilege tax but implement a sales tax.
Half a day and good evening. I'm Adriana Cotero. The pros and cons of allowing licensed off-island nurses to bypass the local certification process drew opposing testimony during a public hearing today. The measure by Senator Mary Torres would authorize Guam to join a nursing licensure compact with other states. Nurses licensed in those states would automatically be allowed to work here and vice versa for Guam nurses. Torres says it would help alleviate the local shortage that's been made worse by the pandemic. But other senators said the waiver ignores the real issue, Guam's perennial lower wages.
Although the advantage of the NLC is the expediency and reduction of processing the nurse licensure application so that the nurse can begin working immediately, the downside is that there will also be a continual loss of our local nurses. Hence, it is imperative that we address and adjust the current salary structure for our nurses.
I understand the concerns of all the other nurses, but I think that we are addressing that with the concerns of the salaries, because that's basically what the bigger picture is here. It's the salaries. If we want to attract these nurses, then we need to pay them what they're getting in the States.
But bill sponsor Torres says they are missing the point, and local nurses may choose to leave for a variety of reasons, with or without the licensure compact.
They're totally free to do that. The idea that you would refrain from a policy because you fear that it might make it easier for somebody to seek better opportunities somewhere is patently wrong.
Supporters of the bill, including local nurses, urged senators to support allowing nurses who wouldn't otherwise work here to come and provide much-needed help. Public Health releases more information on the 18 confirmed positives out of the government quarantine facility reported on Tuesday. Those 18 cases came from 11 different households, with talks on quarantine protocol adjustments up in the air. These recent cases confirm that keeping the current protocol is necessary because it's the main way of catching new cases arriving into the island. Public Health spokesperson Janela Carrera.
So the travelers came in all in different flights. They weren't all in the same flight, and it was between January 19th through January 26th. And they all were, they have 6 days where they are in quarantine before they're offered the test. And so they tested positive between January 28th through the 31st, or February 1st. When I reviewed the cases, most of them were on a United flight. And so it appears as though these came from the mainland.
All 18 individuals are in isolation. According to Carrera, contact tracing is ongoing. 2 members of the National Guard have tested positive for COVID-19. They were part of the group that was deployed to the nation's capital for the presidential inauguration. Guam National Guard spokesperson Captain Mark Scott.
So they returned last week, Wednesday, and they had the negative PCR test within 72 hours of departure. Once they came home, one of our members was symptomatic, tested positive. This was Saturday, and then our second one was on Monday. So we did things by the book. We got the negative PCR test. We got the approval from Public Health to be deemed critical service workers, and had the court order to do restriction of movement, home quarantine.
Scott says that although the Guard followed all protocols, changes need to be made. He says they're looking at possibly adding more requirements, such as more restrictions on the quarantine process and examining the qualifications for critical service workers. On Monday, contact tracing was initiated after a staff member at Price Elementary tested positive for COVID-19. GDOE Superintendent John Fernandez.
We initiated contact tracing with our own team headed by our school nurse and working with our management team as well as public health to identify the number of contacts that would then go into quarantine, and then working to test them today with public health to at least give them that test to see if there's any further positives. So anyone who is at the campus, any stakeholders, family member, student, if you are a contact, you will be notified.
The last time students were on campus was last week, Thursday. Areas of the school that were possibly impacted have been disinfected. Fernandez says an after-action report will be conducted internally to see how they can better address such cases. This is the first positive case reported since schools resumed face-to-face instruction. 8 new cases of COVID-19 were identified out of 553 tests performed on Tuesday, February 2nd. According to the JIC, 6 cases reported recent travel history and were identified in quarantine. To date, there have been a total of 7,618 officially reported cases of COVID, with 129 deaths, 82 cases in active isolation, and 7,407 not in active isolation. The CAR score is 0.6. Additionally, a total of 29,504 people have been vaccinated to date. Of that number, 22,595 received their first dose, while 6,909 people have been fully vaccinated. A total of 4,796 doses of the vaccines are left. Effective Tuesday, February 2nd, it is now federally required that the wearing of masks/face coverings are required for all passengers and crew members in all U.S. airports and throughout the inbound and outbound process. In a press release from the Guam International Airport Authority, it states that the federal requirement will remain in effect until May 11th. Non-compliance can result in denial of entry, boarding, or continued transport and/or civil penalties. 40-year-old Donovan Allen Chargaleff Ornelas pled not guilty by reason of mental illness defect. This afternoon, he appeared for his arraignment hearing with defense counsel Gloria Rudolph. A grand jury indictment charges him with murder as a first-degree felony and aggravated assault as a second-degree felony, all carrying a special allegation of a deadly weapon used in the commission of a felony attached. Ornelas is accused for the January 19th gruesome beheading of 51-year-old Andrew Ray Castro in Santa Rita. As he reported, the defendant admitted that he drove to Dededo and left Castro's head in an abandoned vehicle in the jungle. Court documents state he felt compelled to kill Castro for placing his family in danger. It was also learned that he told officers he used meth while at Castro's residence. Further, in Magistrate Judge John KUAM's courtroom, the defendant asserted his rights to a speedy trial. However, it's been told until he undergoes a forensic evaluation. His next court appearance will be in front of Judge Anita Sokola following the completion of the eval. Day 13 of murder defendant Joshua Palacios' trial, and the defense has rested its case, and the government has no rebuttal witnesses. The final witnesses called up by defense counsel Tom Fisher were key witnesses from the crime scene, where Keith Castro was murdered at a Jigo residence, and Guam Police Department officers who interviewed the individuals nearly 2 years ago. The defendant's case-in-chief arguments ended with Guam Police Department's Criminal Investigation Division Detective Eric Mandia's testimony. He assisted in the July 28, 2019 homicide of Keith Castro investigation. Defense counsel Tom Fisher questioned Mandia's interview with defense witness Heather Fulcher Castro.
She was kind of shook up, overly excited, worried at the same time.
Did Ms. Castro state to you that she may have been the reason the shooting happened?
That is correct.
So did Ms. Castro state to you that Keith Castro had made many enemies like Leighton, Cisco, Johnny Rosario, and Troy Torres?
Yes, that is what she believed.
As stated in court, Heather and Keith were not related and were good friends. She arrived at the scene after he was shot to his death. Joshua Palacios is the alleged gunman accused for the deadly shooting of Castro. However, the defense continues to argue he was framed for the crime. Meanwhile, Assistant Attorney General Rochelle Canto aims to prove the defendant is guilty for the offense.
I just have a couple questions for you about this interview with Ms. Castro.
Sure.
When she said to you that she may have been the reason for the shooting, did she elaborate, or did you find out what else about that statement? Anything else about that statement?
No, she was just stating it as a feeling at that point in time.
Okay, so it was just
due to her prior history.
I see. So she was speculating at that point.
I believe so.
And There was a statement about many enemies and certain names being named. Were any of those people that she named at the scene at the time of Keith Castro's death?
No. Not Leighton Borja, Johnny Rosario, or Chuck Torres.
The defense had subpoenaed Johnny Rosario and Troy Torres to testify, although both invoked their Fifth Amendment rights. As we reported, co-character in the case, Thomas Titano's testimony revealed he went to the Jigo residence that evening to confront Castro for talking about his family, that being sister-in-law Johnny Rosario and brother Josh Titano, on social media. Borja's connection to the case remains unknown. Titano has since pled guilty to aggravated assault charges for his role in the crime. In court today, Attorney Fisher called up eyewitness from the night of the shooting, Melvin Leon Guerrero. He testified that he heard Castro's final words.
Did you approach Keith that evening after he had been attacked?
Yeah, right before he told me his last words.
Okay. And so you did approach him?
Yes.
Sir,
Very good. So he kind of like, well, I was the closest one to him, so, he reached out to me and to grab my hand.
These testimonies concluded the evidence portion of Palacios' trial. Closing statements are scheduled to occur Friday morning in Judge Vern Perez's courtroom. In district court, Mark Mayo's trial resumes with government witness Joseph Roman II's testimony. Roman is the co-defendant in the case who entered a plea agreement with the government. He testified that he did not know Mayo until after the day of the crime. Mark Mayo, Joseph Roman II, and Lovelia Mendoza were all indicted on conspiracy to distribute meth and attempted possession of meth with intent to distribute charges. Daniel Pangilinan was arrested in line with the same crime and faces similar charges. However, he has an individual federal case. Of the 4 defendants, Mayo is the only one who did not enter a plea agreement, has not cooperated with the feds, and is on trial fighting for his freedom. According to Mayo's indictment, he and others conspired to allegedly mail in over 400 grams of meth from April through May 2018. It was on May 10, 2018 when the feds went undercover and conducted a controlled delivery of the package, then followed alleged offenders Roman and Pangilinan to Dededo. The 2 were arrested and detained. This morning in court, it was learned that Pangilinan instantly went into cooperation. And during defense counsel Ronald Mantanotnia's cross-examination on Roman, he testified that after the incident, he met with Mendoza and told her he was arrested and that the feds retrieved the drugs. Further, he testified that he did not know of Mayo until after the crime occurred. According to KUAM archives, Mayo was arrested in November 2019 during a drug raid in Estimbo. The federal indictment on the defendants was filed on November 13, 2019. Attorney Mantanotnia then went through Roman's plea agreement in an effort to present it to the jury as a sweet deal. Roman pled guilty to 1 count in the indictment for conspiracy to distribute meth, with the 2nd count dismissed. He faces up to 10 years in prison, a $10 million fine, and at least a 5-year supervised release term. Although the defense was quick to point out that according to the indictment, the maximum penalty was life in prison. And further, Mantanotnia questioned the 3-level downward departure on the sentencing guidelines, which the government has agreed to for Roman's acceptance of responsibility. According to the agreement, while at the Barrigada post office, Pangilinan waived his rights and admitted to recruiting Roman to pick up the package at Mendoza's request. Pangilinan also pled guilty and agreed to provide substantial assistance to the feds. In court today, he was brought forward to testify as the government's 3rd witness. Assistant U.S. Attorney Laura Sambataro asked Pangilinan about his affiliations with Mendoza. He testified that he worked for her as a drug dealer. Further, he stated that Mendoza had multiple people performing drug distributions and sales for her, including the man on trial, Mark Mayo. Attorney Sambataro questioned Pangilinan specifically on the incident. He testified that he was aware the package contained meth and was promised $600 and an ounce of meth from Mendoza in exchange for his service. However, this was not the case, as their plans changed when Pangilinan and Roman believed that they were being followed by the feds. Pangilinan testified that he immediately contacted Mendoza, and that's when they settled on a new plan, to drop the package off the roadway in Dededo and have Mayo retrieve it. He stated that he believed Mayo knew meth was inside the package, saying, quote, "Because it's what we do, the package was from the post office," unquote. He said his only interactions with Mayo were on Mendoza's orders regarding passing drugs. Further, he testified that he received a call from Mayo informing him the feds picked up the package. Pangilinan testified that at the time they were surrounded by law enforcement. Both Roman and Pangilinan remain incarcerated at the Department of Corrections. Mayo's trial continues tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Just answer the questions and give us what we asked for. That's what Senators Joanne Brown and Tello Taichikwi were saying reacting to yesterday's oversight hearing on hiring practices at the port. Here's more.
It's unfortunate what happened yesterday. I mean, there's been so much effort on behalf of the current general manager and the port to project that everything's all good and wonderful. And, you know, isn't it just a great day? And when you scratch a little bit beneath the surface, you see a whole hornet's nest of negativity that's coming out with regards to their response.
I just keep asking, what is the end game in this?
During yesterday's virtual oversight hearing on the hiring practices at the Port Authority of Guam, there was a lot said. But instead of facts, detailed reasoning, and the requested data, what the general public saw was finger-pointing, excuses, and deflection. Former Port General Manager Senator Joanne Brown.
It just doesn't add up. I mean, if everything's all clean and transparent, I don't think we'd see the type of tone and conduct under which the current general manager conducted himself.
Several times when a question was asked of him, you know, he would throw the question back. That's a classic example. When you don't want to answer a question, you throw a question back. And that's what he was doing. It was totally disingenuous. He could have answered the question.
In cases where a person is convicted of a drug-related offense and still manages to get hired at one of the island's points of entry, Senator Taichikwi says it's like hiring a recovering alcoholic to work the bar.
Don't dangle a carrot from someone who's been, you know, formerly a drug addict or involved in drugs and put him in a place where it's tempting to go back to the old way, you know. That is my greatest concern here.
So I did provide a list of all the hires from 2010 to present.
After being asked again and again to produce a list of employees who've had a criminal history prior to being picked up at the port, senators left the Zoom room empty-handed. And being that Port GM Respicio failed to deliver the list of names requested by the committee.
Now we want to get the information that we asked for that Rory did not provide to us. Just to be transparent. And for him to be so argumentative during the whole process just leads me to believe that he's trying to hide something. He's trying to cover up something.
Both Senators Taichikwi and Brown agree that the recent oversight hearing was not sufficient, and they are hopeful that the committee chair, Senator Talina Nelson, will request for an additional oversight hearing into the Port Authority. Next time, hopefully, with a little more substance. For the full interview, visit the KUAM YouTube page. For Guam's News Network, I'm Peter Santos.
Thank you, Peter. And stick around for more news here on Primetime. You're watching KUAM.
It makes myself and it makes my team members very proud to work for an organization that has been on island for many years with its focus on reliability, dependability, and commitment to the communities that they operate in.
Matson's a great corporate citizen to the community.
We all benefit from any sort of environmental commitment we make. One of the ways that we do that is with our Adahi Utano program. There's action behind it, and so action breeds commitment.
With the Kaimana Hila coming to Guam, this brings a new age and modernization to the island.
It's exciting for me because it's a brand new ship and we can carry more freight into the islands. It just shows growth for Guam and Micronesia.
Matson would be nothing without its customers, and we hope to continue to serve you for decades to come.
While we've all been through a lot over the years, typhoons, earthquakes, and now COVID-19, we've been able to get through these together.
For more than 80 years, Cowboys Insurance has been protecting your homes, your businesses,
and the health of your family.
We are here today and we'll be here tomorrow.
There are better days ahead. Tomorrow's a new day filled with hope and choices.
The possibilities of what we can achieve together are limitless.
Let's continue to work together to ensure a brighter tomorrow for all of us.
How do you dare? You chip away at what's been built because you can do better. How do you dare? You chase away wrongs to make room for what's right. You. How do you dare? You stand while they sit and scream when they are silent. You combine your strengths to reject their weakness. You step up, stand out, and shape a new point of view. How do you dare? This is How You Dare. Introducing the all-new Elantra.
KUAM News, winner of the 2020 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Social Media.
Welcome back. The Cannabis Control Board held a meeting today going over the proposed rules and regulations. The board discussed the viability of micro licenses and the potential for vertical integration. The establishment of these micro licenses would allow for small business startups to enter the industry at a lower, more financially feasible cost. CCC board member William Parkinson said, quote, "Cannabis businesses are a capital-intensive undertaking, and smaller micro licenses will give the small mom-and-pop grower a real opportunity to make a living," unquote. Parkinson went on to say, in the best-case scenario, these smaller licenses can potentially act as a bridge to let a small grower achieve a level of success that they can even become a larger grower through their sheer industry and quality. The board went into recess and will reconvene next Wednesday. Senator Joe San Augustine is proposing to reduce the business privilege tax from 5% to 3%, but he also wants to implement a first-ever sales tax of 2%. Nestor Lecanto has more.
The bill would implement a 2% general sales tax on all goods and services with certain exemptions. Liquid fuel is one, and food is another.
If you're selling food, if you're in a restaurant business, and all the folks that are doing the food trucks and everything, nobody pays the sales tax. Their BBT goes down. And if they're in the food truck industry or restaurant and they're making, let's say, over $500,000 a year, well, you know what? You're down to 3% anyway. So the cry to say that let's help the business, this is another way to help the business.
The bill would also reduce the business privilege tax from 5% down to 3%. The chamber and other business groups had wanted a rollback from 5% to 4%. It's a compromise, San Augustine says they still support.
I reached out to the Chamber of Commerce, Christian Baleto, and said, oh, she likes it. She's going to talk to her committee and see how, they can work it where it can work.
The Leon Guerrero administration has opposed any reduction in the BPT, saying the government can't afford any cut and still provide needed services. The net loss in tax revenue is unclear, but San Augustine says it can be made up by other spending.
If you can spend less on food and still get a lot of food, you're going to be able to use what a lot of folks will call your disposable income. I'm going to go buy me now that TV. Because why? That's the only thing I'm going to get taxed on.
He says he's also considering adding an exemption for medicines after getting further input. A previous